Howdy, I'm Class Lives. I think it's time to play a little Minecraft. Alright. I don't know what I was doing. It's been so long. Looks like I was moving some villagers out. I'm not sure that I'm ready for villagers yet, though. I feel like it might be a little early. I need to get some lighting and stuff in place, right? I don't know, because I don't remember. It's been so long. I took a little break from playing on my single player because the server I was playing on was going uh, Hidden Secrets 2, which was like a second season of Hidden Secrets, I guess. Different people, but let's see, Fortune, Silk Touch, but same server owner. I guess I was the same. Uh, there were some repeats, I think, for a hot second, and it slowly devolved down to just like 4 of us, and then they decided to shut it down. There we go. So I guess that one's done. So I'm going to come back here and work on my single player some more. I could use some food. I have a lot of wheat on me for some reason. Guess we could make some bread. Although I've got potatoes, I'm sure. Let me check my chest over here attached to my smoker. Yeah, I got potatoes. There we go. So yeah, I was and of course now it's time to take a little nappy nap. Can't tell. I don't think that's. No, it is. Can't wait for that line to get right straight up and down. Alright, so I know I was working on my little town over here. Which I was gonna say, where's your llama guy? Llama dama ding dong. But I was working on this over here to build my new little town with. I don't like that. Who let that be a thing? Alright, I've got to get some stairs so I can fix that. I don't like that. Or, maybe I'll just do this. There we go. Oh, I think I wanted a villager to come in here and be my librarian. Was my plan here. Here in my whatever this thing is called. It's not telescope, man. Observatory. There we go. Whew. Obviously, I need some more work out here, too. I just spent all this time. So, I know I told the story on the final episode of Hidden Secrets, but just a real quick story. We had started working. So, Hidden Secrets 2 was different than Hidden Secrets 1 in one major aspect, and that was the server owner Fret. He wanted to do a thing where ran through the different um, we ran through the different versions of Minecraft, and so we started in beta 1.1, which was the early like server version, and then we ran forwards, and so it was interesting because I hadn't played those versions. We didn't stick with them too long. It was like every 2 weeks we would move up a number, and so I need a desert. Oh, you know what? I know there's a desert that way, but it's faster to go through my nether. I need sand. I want to sand up my beaches here a little bit. And so, we each had projects and that were for the little city we were building. And I had mistakenly thought that when they said we were going to play through the beta versions, I thought they meant we were... Oh, you didn't send me forward, man. I thought they meant that we were going to play through the snapshots. And then every 2 weeks we would update to the newest snapshots. And that is not what they meant. And so I wound up playing through the beta versions, right? So it was interesting. But there's a lot of building blocks that don't exist. And some of the things really change the way the game works. Like, I built this UFO that, man, I've taken down so much of the sand in this area. I guess this is my desert where I collect sand. And so, like things like slabs could only go on the bottom, right? So there's no half slab on top there. You have to put a full block or nothing, I guess. You can put them on the bottom, but you can't put them on the top. And so I built this UFO, and one of the interesting things coming through the different versions was that the water physics change. And so what I'd done was I put a source block of water in the UFO to mean, or not to mean, but to be like a beaming you up into the UFO, right? And that was how I got into my base. My base was the UFO. Well, some of the versions of beta Minecraft, the water was so forceful that you couldn't almost swim up the water, and so what would happen was you'd start up the thing, and it was so slow that you'd have to stop halfway and come out the side to get air. And so it was interesting. It was interesting. But it also because the like 1.5 is where they made a lot of changes to like redstone stuff and added in hoppers, and so I had to figure out new ways to do things. And so like one of the things I wanted to do was have rotating lights on my UFO, and I got it to work using powered rails that just kept sending powered rails and activators that kept sending a minecart round and round. And so that worked. It wasn't as bright as I wanted it to be because they don't have redstone lanterns in the early versions, and so there's a lot of stuff like that you had to fill around with. And then we reached a point where they decided that I'm the kind of guy that just goes with the flow, right? So whatever you want to do, I'll work with it, you know. And so they decided that once we reached 1.0, we needed to start over because there were too many um, chunk generation changes at that point, and they wanted access to all the new stuff. I don't know. I don't know what changed in 1.0 that we really needed to move, but that was the decision. We left everything behind and started over from scratch, basically. And so I have to do this the slow way because I can't remember what. Why is there water here? This doesn't make any sense. And so we did. We went out to the new place, and we had a big group event. And I think the group events and stuff got changed to once a month at that point. And so we were on there for about a month, and I don't know what the one guy did at all, other than some mining. I guess they did a lot of mining, and they built one of them built a mob grinder. I know they went into the Nether and did some stuff. We didn't do that on the group event. That was afterwards. And the one guy did a lot of farming, and so there's a lot of farming that got done, and then I had taken on the job of making paths, which I've never really done. I'm not. I don't know. My idea of a path is to lay down some bricks and call it good, right? And so I had to make fancy path because that's how we do it. And so I spent probably most of my time making this tree and then laying out paths around our new town center. And then they're like, "Hey, yeah, we were having a conversation about Discord." And the one guy was like, "Yeah, I had all the announcements turned off because I didn't understand the settings, but I finally have gotten around after like 2 years. I finally got around to fixing my settings." And I'm like, "Oh, I just keep most of my servers on mute so that I don't get annoyed by the settings." I mean, I still get like the little dots and stuff letting me know that there's been a message, but apparently what they did was they started discussing the server, but nobody left me a message that that's what was going on. And because I didn't get a message, it didn't let me know that there were new messages. And so the guy's like, "Yeah, I know you don't get notifications because you haven't read the Hidden Secrets Discord in forever." I'm like, "Oh, are there new messages? Because I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I didn't think there was anything new." And it had been a month. It was a month. It was almost a full month since the last time I had been on the Discord. Not that I don't use Discord, and not that I don't play games with these guys like multiple times a week. Nobody said anything. And so, you figure if there had been a problem, somebody might have said, "Hey, we're having a discussion." I mean, I literally play with these guys 3 times a week for hours. And so it's a little bizarre to me that they didn't say anything. But I get on there and like, "Oh yeah, it's done. It's done on the month ago." I'm like, "Oh, so my last 8 episodes that I recorded were by myself." And it's funny because my videos are like, so don't know what's been going on. I haven't seen anybody really put in any work yet. That's because I'm the only one playing on the server the whole time. I like playing on a multiplayer server. I do. It doesn't really change the way I play necessarily, but it's nice to see other people building things. And so, yep, so we're back on here. Good old single player. Which is alright, because I like building on here too. I like playing Minecraft. I do. I wouldn't play it if I didn't like it. Speaking of playing something I liked, so I like board games. And I decided to finally purchase this board game that I've been wanting for a long time now. And that is the Fallout board game. And it was really fun. I mean, I like playing board games, and I will play almost any board game that you want to play. And they're like everything else, right? There's different levels of fun. And so it's rare for me to find a board game that I don't want to play. But Fallout board game was exceptionally fun. I only played it once, and I really liked it. It was super complicated to set up. I'm not going to lie about that. It is not the easiest game to set up. It does have some crazy setup and rules to it a little bit. That's not what I wanted to do. It's not what I wanted to do, man. You're supposed to put down a torch, not dig up the ground. And but once you figure out the setup, it's actually pretty easy to play, and it goes pretty fast. And I found it very enjoyable for this kind of game. I like a complicated game. Some games are complicated and maybe a little too tedious to make them super fun. This one seemed like it was going to be like that. Like it was going to be fun, but it wasn't going to be big fun, you know? Um, I don't know how to describe what I mean. Like, all right, so like Cyberpunk, right? Cyberpunk is fun, but it's not big fun. It was supposed to be big fun, but it really didn't turn out to be big fun for me. Horizon Zero Dawn, on the other hand, was big fun for me. If that gives a better example of what I'm trying to say here. And so I I was super pleased with our one shot at Fallout so far. I feel like we will probably play it again. We died. We died. I'm gonna fill this in. I know I was kind of leaving it here because it's part of the terrain, but if I'm gonna build a little village over here for my guys, I can't have this here. I don't know if spiders will spawn under here, so I'm gonna put a torch down there and try and cut down on the spider noises. So basically, it the board is made up of hexes, and and the hexes are um, usually have several locations on them that you can move your character into. So like sure, it's a hex, but the hex might be divided up into 5 different spots that your character can move to. And so um, the the there's a lot of cards that go with the game. It was a lot to unpack and try to figure out. I'm not gonna lie, and it took me. We were pretty far into our session for the day when I think I finally figured out what some of this stuff meant, and um, but it was pretty cool. So you got your characters, and they go up levels, which give them some slight edges and advantage over things. And there's equipment you can buy, and there are places you can explore. And so there's these decks of exploration, and so you don't know what's going to happen because it's random ish. I say ish because one of the interesting things I thought they had with it was there's a story deck, and so when you play, you start with a story deck entry, and then as the game progresses, the story deck changes um, what quests you're working on, and so there's like almost 180 story cards in it, and uh, it's based off of Fallout 4, and so there are factions. That was one of the things that I didn't understand going in. It didn't make any sense. The rules could use a tweaking, let me tell you. So, like, you lay it out, and there's a location called Diamond City. And so there's scenarios that you play, and except because of how random the game is, the scenarios are not like here's the list of things that will happen. The scenarios are more like here's who's which faction, and this is the spots where you put the city locations, and maybe there's something else that happens. And so the one we played was called the Commonwealth, and so you put down a shield, and that was the thing that I didn't understand because there's 2 factions, the shield and the star, but it doesn't say anywhere in the rule book that I could find to tell you what that means. And so I finally realized, looking at the scenario thing, that it says on the scenario card who's the star and who's the shields. And so once we figured that out, it got a little easier to play through. But so once you get the rules, and it doesn't take too long to get the rules, I guess, but they definitely weren't as intuitive as they were pretending. But it did turn out to be a very all right. I gotta go down one more level than this. That's crazy. Uh, it did turn out for me to be a very very enjoyable game. I liked it a lot. We died. We failed. We didn't have to be dead. We could have kept playing, but I felt like it was a good time to stop when the other person that was playing with me died. Uh, I just really dug the story card stuff. Like it was interesting, and then like as you're playing, there's wasteland cards and settlement cards. So like you go in the settlement, and so the other player picks up your settlement card when you want to do what they call an encounter. And so an encounter is going into the settlement or um, searching a wasteland section. And so then it was like As you enter the small settlement, you see a woman trying to catch her cat. And do you ignore the woman and her cat and continue your way onto the marketplace, which means you're going to shop? Or do you want to try and help the woman catch the cat? And so you opt to try and catch the cat, which is what my nephew did. And so he tried to catch the cat. Well, it requires you to roll these dice that tell you when you hit things. And so you got to get 4 hits. And Fallout's got, if you've never played Fallout, Fallout's got this system called Special, which is your stats: strength, perception, endurance, SPE, constitution, or charisma. It's got to be charisma, right? Because E is endurance. And intelligence, agility, and luck. Special. And so if you have the matching bonuses, then you can re-roll your rolls to try and get those numbers. But there's only 3 dice that you roll, so getting 4 hits on 3 dice seems tough to me. But there are things that give you bonuses to that, and so he failed, and so there's a failure thing on the card, and the failure was the cat scratches you and gets away, and you take a point of damage. So stuff like that for the encounters, or like a bad guy might spawn, and you have to fight the bad guy, and we got overwhelmed by the bad guys, is what happened, because the more you explore, the more bad guys there are on the map, and the more dangerous it becomes. I'm on fire. That's right. And then today we played the other board game I just bought, and that was, I'm a huge fan of Godzilla. Oh, you knocked me off my course there, armored skeleton. And now you're dead for it. And so I also collect comics, and so I'm a super nerd. No, I got into collecting a particular comic a long time ago, and so I have been basically, I don't read them, I just buy them and add them to collection. And I think it was in the early hundreds when I started collecting it, and it's over 300 comics now. And you figure only one comes out a month. So I've been doing it a long time. And so, man, if it's over 300 and it was in the low hundreds when I started it, and it only comes out once a month, it doesn't even come out once a month. Have I really been collecting this? Whew, I'll bet I have. I've been collecting this comic for close to 20 years. That's crazy. So anyways, they send out an email to check the new pre-orders, because that's the way the comic book stores work, is you get a discount a lot of times if you order a comic early. Then the comic book store gets a discount on what it has to pay, and then at least my comic book store passes that on to you, and so you can get a discount. And so I often peruse some of the pre-orders, and I saw that they had the pre-order for a board game, because they do have a toys section. My comic book store is online. My local comic book store would not work with me, and they're not in business anymore at this point. But anyways, Godzilla Tokyo Clash is a lot of fun. We played that today. You play as Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, or Megalon, and the different monsters have different abilities. and there's card decks, and there's like a built-in kind of timer based on how much destruction you do to the city, and as you're fighting each other, but the city is destruction of the city is how you build up your power, and so it's like a race to see who can get the most points of power to use their special abilities to damage their monsters to get the most trophy cards. Um, so that by the time the oxygen destroyer is used by the humans, you have the most domination points. It was pretty fun. I have to tell the comic book story again. So because I started collecting this comic, I actually what had happened was I got really into this cartoon that came out in the '90s called Spawn, and so I started collecting the action figures for it. And so my brother decided to start collecting the comic, and he moved out and he left the comics, and so he was gone for a long time, like married, kids, and so then my sister was gonna move in, and I think my grandmother had died, and all sorts of stuff like that. And so we were cleaning out what used to be my brother's room to make room for a common game room between my sister and her husband and myself. And we'd have like the TV in there and our recliners and consoles and stuff like that. And well, while we were doing that, I found the box of comics. And so it was like issues 1 through 80 or something like that. And so I was like, man, I should see if I can finish this series. And so it was up to like 120 something, I think. And so it'd been a couple years, right, since like 3 years since my brother had even looked at it. And so I was like, hey man, you think it'd be all right if I took your old comics? I kind of want to, get the series up to date and collect it because I'm into the Spawn stuff. And he was like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and get it up to date, and then I'll come and get it from you. I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah, you can get it up to date for me, and then I'll come and collect it. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not gonna update your comic books. I would update my comic books. You didn't seem to care that they were here, so I just figured, no, I want them. He says. So he takes them, and then he takes them home, and he puts them in the garage next to the door. And so they got ruined from the rain and snow blowing in through the garage door onto the box of comics that he just dumped out of his truck onto the floor and left them there to rot. And meanwhile, I found a much better collection on eBay that had almost all the way up to date, and and had a lot of the special editions and the spin-off series and stuff like that. So it was a really good deal for me. And so I went to my local comic book store, and I was like, hey, I want to start collecting the Spawn comics. Do you think, I know that you pre-order them ahead of time, do you think that I could get a pre-order? Like, I'd pay you a month in advance, and then you could order in a copy for me and hold it, and then I would come by like once a month and pick them up when they come in. And the guy was like, yeah, no, we don't really do that kind of thing. And I was like, he's like, I don't want to like have to hold your comic and not know if you're ever going to come pay for it. I'm like, no, I'll pay you ahead of time. I said, like, I will give you the money now, and then when the next one comes in next month, then you tell me that my comic's in. You just hold it for me. And he's like, yeah, I don't really want to start doing that because if I do it for one person, then other people are going to probably want that to happen. I'm like, oh, okay. So we have it's not even a big town, but there were two comic book stores and they were across the road from each other. And not the main road, they were like across the side road. So there wasn't even like traffic to worry about. So it was basically like walk down the sidewalk to the next store. And so I went to the other store, and so the first one I'd gone to was the bigger store, and so it was like coins and action figures and all that kind of stuff. And the other store was much tinier and dealt mostly with just comics. And so I was like, "Hey, same rigmarole. I'd like to get this comic. I'd like to have it pre-ordered so I know that there's going to be one in for me." Because I didn't live in town. I lived like 15 miles outside of town, and so it would be a special trip to come check to see when the new comic was in. And so I just figured it'd be better if, you know, I just come in at the end of the month to make sure that, at the end of the month my comic would be there. And he was like, "Well, I don't know. I don't think so." I'm like, "Okay." And, same thing. I don't want to buy the comic and then have you not. I'm like, "No, I'll pay you ahead of time." He's like, "But then I'd be responsible for making sure that your comic came in and and I'd have to have it stored here someplace in a room full of boxes of comics." He couldn't find a place to tag one comic as belonging to me. And and besides that, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in this comic business, and so I don't want to start your pre-orders and then find out in 6 months that I'm not going to do it anymore. It was like 10 years later when he stopped the comic book store, but and so I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, you can just come in and see if there's a copy like everybody else. He says to me. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I went home and I went online and found a comic book store that allows you to subscribe to comics. And so they just order a comic and then charge me for it when they order it. And then when it comes in, they put them in a box. And once a month, they ship me a box of the comics that I've picked out. And so, yeah, uh, that's my annoyed to have to deal with store owners' story about comic books. All right, with that, I am going to call it a day. So be better than small things, lean to the light. I will talk to you later.